So let's move on to number 3, gear number 3 here. And so we've done the work in number 1, number 2. Moving into number 3, how do we finesse this into the whole mix?
So this goes back to this reward valuation that our brains have. So the first, step is mapping out these habit loops. The second step is seeing how unrewarding the old habit is, whether it's worry or procrastination or stress eating or whatever. And then when our brain starts to see, okay, that's not really that rewarding, give me something better. That's what our brain's going to say. It's like, what's better? So I think of it as the BBO, the bigger, better offer. So we can offer our brain something better, yet what we offer it makes a big difference. So if we're anxious and we start stress eating, what they call it, the quarantine 15, where people are gaining weight, during the quarantine, certainly a lot of increase in alcohol use during the quarantine. And I saw this before the quarantine, where a lot of my patients would drink as a way to moderate their anxiety or to try to distract themselves from it, basically feel better. So there can be these bigger, better offers that aren't that much better because they have their own consequences. I had a patient, I wrote about him a little bit in my book, where he was up to drinking 6 to 8 shots of alcohol every night to work with his anxiety, and not very helpful for him. He was referred to me for alcohol use disorder. So, whether it's going to Netflix and binging or scrolling on social media or whatever our distraction du jour is, that can be a bigger, better offer, but they tend to be, excuse me, that can be a bigger, better offer, but those tend to be problematic in the sense that our brains habituate to them. So for example, you need to drink more alcohol over time to get the same effects. And they also can cause negative consequences, like killing our livers if we're drinking or whatever. So ideally, we want to find a bigger, better offer that is always available and doesn't become habituated. And here, awareness might actually be that bigger, better offer in itself. So we talked about awareness in first gear. You have to become aware of a habit loop. We talked about awareness in second gear, where you have to become aware of how unhelpful or unrewarding the old behavior is. Awareness itself, and in particular, that attitude of curiosity, may be that bigger, better offer that, because it comes from within, doesn't become habituated. So let me ask you a question, pop quiz hotshot, right? So this is not pre-rehearsed. If you had to pick between feeling anxious or being curious, which one feels better?
Curious.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer. So we can actually bring curiosity in when we're anxious, and it starts to flip the valence from being caught up in that anxiety to being totally curious about what this feels like in our bodies. I'm not saying this is, it's going to be a flip of the switch and suddenly we're always going to be curious, but that's something that we can work into over time, and we can practice awakening, because we all have this capacity to be curious. It's just often dusty or rusty, because we haven't used it very much.
Well, since most of us haven't used this very much, let's get into the finer details. Talk about what that looks like.
So there are 2 flavors of curiosity. One is called deprivation curiosity, and one is called interest curiosity. Deprivation curiosity is about that information seeking mode, where we don't have the information, we don't know something, so that urges us to go look it up. In the modern day, this gets habituated because we have these, we're always connected to the internet, so we can always look something up, and it's kind of annoying when you're out to dinner with somebody and they say, who is that guy? And then they pull out their phone when it doesn't really matter who that movie star was, and it breaks the flow of the conversation. So we can see how deprivation curiosity can help us get information, but it's also a double-edged sword. It can lead us down all sorts of rabbit holes. And it in itself, because it's that edgy, urgy feeling, doesn't actually feel that great. Okay. So it's important for people to know that, and know that that's natural and normal, and that we all, have deprivation curiosity. The curiosity I'm talking about specifically when it comes to working with old habits is the other type. It's called interest curiosity. You can think of deprivation curiosity as kind of a journey. When you get to the destination, so deprivation being the destination, when you get to that destination, the curiosity is satisfied, and then you move on with your day. Okay. Think of interest curiosity as the journey, the joy of discovery. So it doesn't matter where you're going. You're just totally interested and fascinated. And what happens, if you look at a kid, like 3-year-olds are great at modeling this, where they're just, they're outside staring at nature. They're just walking around in wide-eyed wonder, and that wide eye actually has an evolutionary origin. It's bringing in more information. So we have our eyes wide open. Oh, wow. What's this? What's this? What's this? That's interest curiosity. That's the joy of discovery. And literally, it feels great to be discovering things. So we can pair these two types of curiosity together. The deprivation curiosity can help us map out habit loops. Oh, what is this that's driving this, right? Let me find that out. But then we immediately pair that with the interest curiosity, where we're truly exploring, not jumping to conclusions to try to, get the answer right away, but really asking ourselves, what is driving this? And we can truly ask ourselves when we're anxious, what does this feel like? So often, because anxiety is unpleasant, we're set up, evolutionarily speaking, to run away from things that are unpleasant, to make them go away. You put your hand on the hot stove, you're going to pull it away because it hurts. Anxiety hurts. And so our natural reaction is to make it go away as quickly as possible, which is why we distract ourselves or drink or smoke or whatever. Here, we have to learn to lean into the discomfort. And this is where curiosity can help us do that. We can get curious instead of going, oh, I'm anxious, make this go away. We can go, oh, here's anxiety. Here's this feeling in my body. What thoughts are happening right now? What emotions are coming up? Where do I feel this in my body? And we can I like this simple question, and we've actually embedded this as a stress tool in our Unwinding Anxiety app, where I have people, when they're feeling anxiety, I ask them to drop into their body and ask themselves, where do I feel this most? Is it more on the right side or the left side of my body? Which gets us to go, I don't know. In this moment, where is it more, on the right side or the left side? The answer doesn't matter. It's not like left-sided anxiety is worse than right-sided from a prognostic perspective. It's really about dropping us into that interest curiosity. So we start to explore what's actually happening, and the exploration itself already helps us unwind it. And the way it does that is through what's called an observer effect. This was first coined in physics, where when they were measuring light, I think they were looking at these slit lamp experiments and found that when they were using a light detector, that detector actually affected the results of their experiments. So by observing, you're going to actually affect the results. You're going to affect the light itself. We can do the same thing in psychology. So if we have a thought or an emotion and we're identified with it, anxiety, I am anxiety, by observing it, what does this feel like? We're creating that observer effect where there's perspective, there's distance, where we can't be as identified by definition because we are now observing it rather than being caught up in it.
The challenge I have, I guess, with this is the fact that we're using the term bigger, better offer. And at least from the outside, somebody who hasn't done a lot of work in this, it seems like the bigger, better offer would be to turn on Netflix and to binge watch this, multi-million-dollar production that's been designed to stimulate us and engage us and versus, okay, I'm feeling anxious. I'm going to go inside and see where I'm feeling some tingling and some different emotions. How could doing that inner work, that curiosity, how could that be the bigger, better offer?
Yeah. So let me ask you, let's say that you're in the middle of a podcast interview, hypothetically speaking, and you start to get anxious, which I'm sure you never do. Can you say, can we pause this for a moment? Because I'm going to go binge on Netflix for the next day, and then we'll come back to this. So just don't forget the flow of the conversation, and we'll pick right up tomorrow. How well does that work?
Not a chance.
So how about if you started to notice that you're getting anxious, and then you just took a moment, and you just checked in with your body to feel, just for a moment or two, there's tightness, there's tension. Would that be a little more adaptive?
A little easier to implement, yes, on the go.
I'm not saying that people can implement it like without a little bit of practice, but ultimately, if somebody wants to binge on Netflix or do these other things, I would say go for it and see what you get from it. This is where they can actually drop into second gear and see if that's becoming a habit strategy. And they can ask themselves, is this helping me or not? This doesn't mean that watching Netflix is a bad thing. It's just, at times when we're in the middle of work or whatever, we need other coping strategies that can actually help us uproot this at its core. And I don't mean that as in we'll never have anxiety again, but what we can do is fundamentally change our relationship to our thoughts, emotions, and feelings. If we can fundamentally change our relationship and see them as thoughts, emotions, and body sensations rather than who we are or be caught up in them, we can work with these things at any time, when we're driving the car, when we're in a speech, when we're doing a podcast and we're freaking out that we're not doing a good job. It can help us at any of those moments rather than just relying on these other things that not only can cause negative outcomes, right? Sitting on your butt watching Netflix is not that healthy if you do that a lot. And these things also become habituated. I'm sure somebody's got the record for watching, X number of hours of Netflix at once. But I would have to say after that week or however long they've done it, I'm going to guess they don't feel very healthy.
You got to look more bigger picture.
Yeah, definitely.